Hey guys, it is Admin. Welcome back to Zelda Battle Arena Explained. Today we're going to be taking a look at how the bows work. So let's just jump right into it. So, some of you were wondering how I got multiple bow textures to actually be in the game. So, this actually uses a really cool and somewhat advanced resource pack trick. So I'll go and briefly explain it. We're going to use a wooden sword for an example. So, this wooden sword here is at full health, but you'll notice none of these are at full health. That is actually because, in a resource pack, you can change the texture of an item depending on the percent that it is damaged. So in this case, if we give ourselves a couple other wooden swords, each of these swords is able to have a different texture, but we can actually take this a step further. We know that the resource pack determines the texture based on the percent you put in. But what if your percent value was equal to only one damage value? So what if you had 58 and 57 have different textures? To do this, we need to find the right percent value to actually make it like this. Thus, by doing this, the wooden sword can actually have 58 different textures. So for the bows, we did basically exactly that. Each of these has a different damage, and because of that, they have a different model. I say model because technically it's not a texture, it's a model, but our model is a flat texture, thus it's basically the exact same. Now, we did have to do this in such a way that it also retains like the pulling back animation, but that was not too difficult. So I've explained sort of how the resource pack does it, but this is also run with command blocks, so let's go take a look at them and I'll try my best to explain them. So, all of the redstone used here is this block right here and this long line right here. This is actually divided up into multiple different segments, with the bomb arrow being this line right along there, then the fire, then the ice, then the light, and then we divide it again into bomb, fire, ice, and light. So, this is actually, again, like I said, divided. We have the detecting and whatnot of the fire arrows, or whatever arrow type it is, on this side, and we have the effects that actually come from that on this side. And lastly, up top, we have all of the particle stuff. So let's take a look at how the bomb bow works. It is probably the best bow of all of them, as it not only will blow up when it hits the ground, but also if it hits an entity. Never before has there really been a bow made that can do both of those things. So, let's take a look at how it works. Okay, so step 1 is to detect that the player shot a bow. To do that, we're using a scoreboard called shotbow that is simply a stat.useitem.bow. So every time you shoot, you'll see that this flickers to 1 for such a small amount of time you don't even notice. But it does happen, nonetheless. After that happens, we then do another scoreboard. In this command block right here, we are looking for all players that have a shot bow of 1. If they have shot their bow, then we give them a is bomb bow if their selected item is a bow that has the right damage value. Thus, if it has a damage value of 1, which is what the bomb bow has, it gives you a score of is bomb bow. So we'll see that this flickers. But if, say, we shoot this, it will not flicker. Sorry if it's hard to see, but it's only showing up on my screen for, I think, 1 frame. So next what we do is we give an arrow a bunch of tags. If it is not able to be picked up, we give it the invalid tag. If it is in the ground, we give it the invalid tag. well, the in-ground, we give it the in-ground tag. And if it has any potion effects on it at all, we give it an invalid tag. Now, what we can do with that, we can search for a player that has shot their bow, and it has to be the is bomb bow, so we know both of those have happened. So then we can look for any arrows that are close to them, and the arrow has to be not invalid and not in the ground. If both of those are true, then we give it a custom potion effect, which is ID 13. Now ID 13 is the unluck potion effect, which obviously isn't used anywhere, so we can just use that then. We also give it a short duration. Now, the amplifier is really important, because what we're doing, for the bomb bow, we give them amplifier of 0, while the next one is an amplifier of 1, and so on. So then, later on, we can use that to detect what type of bow or arrow actually hit the mob. Also, with this command block right here, we have a scoreboard for arrow ID, which basically is doing the exact same thing, except it is marking the arrow with a number. So in this case, for the fire arrow, it's 1, while the light arrow is 4. Again, it's pretty much the same, except for this, it is a scoreboard value, so we can execute that while the arrow is flying. This is what we do for the particles. We just execute the arrow with the arrow ID of 1 to then blah blah blah, and do stuff. So it's actually really simple in that case. So the potion effects are pretty self-explanatory, like I was saying. We just look for the arrow with the correct ID and play the particles at the area. Now, we do have something kind of interesting here, and that is this explode. I had to put it over here, but this is actually used not only in the bomb bow to make this explosion, but also in the bomb. So the bomb is actually coded over there, but it references this code when it needs to explode. Just a little thing I did to save 5 command blocks. But now let's get on to where they actually do something. So before we can actually move on, over here we kill all the arrows when they hit the ground. So you'll see this one disappears, this one disappears. They all disappear when they hit the ground. So that is done over here, but if they hit an entity, that is done over here. So for the bomb bow, we simply set a score for all entities that have the specific effect. So we are looking for the amplifier and also the right ID, but mainly the amplifier. Then we set a corresponding scoreboard value of has effect. Then we can execute them based on whether or not they, quotes, have effect. And if they do, then we can do whatever we want. So in this situation, we simply take the has effect that they have and set one of their tags to be explode. That is then referenced up here, because this is looking for any entity with a tag of explode. Thus we make the mob explode. Now there are a couple of things set in place to make sure that that tag disappears right afterwards, so they only explode once, but that's how the bomb bow works. Now the fire bow is actually simpler than you would think. We didn't really even have to go through the trouble of having potion arrows, because it's just a flame 2 bow. But it does mean that we can have nice particles, so yeah, and same actually goes for the light bow, where the only reason why we're taking it is for the particles. But for the ice bow, we end up doing something that is pretty mediocre, and I'll probably be changing at some point. And that is, we give them a frozen tag of 120. And then we're clearing all their active effects and stuff. And then we start counting down. And they have no AI the entire time that they're frozen. And then, so they get AI when their frozen score goes down to 0. And then every so often, we play the Frozen theme song. No, not the Frozen theme song. Um, we don't do Let It Go either. What did we do? We play the Indrod particles every so often for the 180 seconds that they're, not seconds, 180 ticks that they're frozen for. So when that is the case, it looks something like this. Sort of. But I never could really work out the kinks, so it was pretty mediocre. I mean, it does kind of look like they're frozen, but... And then they have, like, weird AI afterwards, so... I'll probably just replace it with slowness for a certain amount of time or something, but... Well, anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed and have learned something from the Bows Explained video. If you have, make sure to leave a like, and if you want to see and learn more, make sure to subscribe. I'll catch you guys all in the next episode. Thanks for watching.